The time is 6:33. I'd like to call this regular Board of Education meeting to order. The first item of business for this evening is the roll call for those Board of Education members who are present. Trustee Goodrich, could you perform the roll call, please?
Certainly, Madam President. Trustee Sutton Kennedy.
Present.
Trustee Espy.
Here.
Trustee Fields.
Here.
Trustee Townsend.
Here.
Trustee Goodrich, I am here. Vice President Lee.
Present.
President Hawkins.
Here. We have 7 Board of Education members present. Next, that takes us to the Pledge of Allegiance. At this time, I would like to invite everyone to stand in reciting of the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, that takes us to the acceptance of the agenda. Is there a motion at this time to accept the agenda as presented?
Vice President Lee, move that the Board of Education accept the agenda as presented.
Thank you. A motion has been made by Vice President Lee. Is there support for this motion?
Support, Trustee Townsend.
Thank you. Supported by Trustee Townsend. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries. Next, that takes us to achievements, awards, and recognition. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Elena Zachary Ross.
Thank you, Madam President. I just love this time of the meeting when we have the opportunity to see and hear from our schools. So at this time, I just asked Principal Ingraham if she'd come up to introduce all of the folks here from Ypsilanti. Ipsy Connected. I know they don't want to do the whole Y2 squared. They got a lot of acronyms. However, whatever acronym you want to say, it's the place where people feel like they belong. And so I appreciate that Principal Ingraham is here along with her great supportive staff members. So thank you.
So Mrs. Reeves is our middle school lead. And then we have Mrs. Puckett Newell, one of our TCs. We have Erin Anderson, physical education teacher, among others. So she's also a rising leader. And so is Mrs. Reeves. And then we have Adina Hanaran, she's our second grade advisor as well as our science teacher. The students refer to her as a scientist. She is not a teacher.
Thank you for welcoming us. Ypsi Connected Community School, aka YC Squared, offers a learning environment that delivers live online instruction to K-8 grade students daily. YC Squared provides a learning atmosphere that allows all students, including those who have struggled in traditional in-person settings, to establish and participate in the most comfortable and in turn productive learning environment.
YC Squared staff are leaders in adopting and trying the latest methods and tools for engaging students in the most relevant learning environment. Our staff has a significant presence at the McCall Conference each year, and we have representation at most professional learning opportunities. We love to learn. YC Squared, 2nd through 5th grade core instruction is platoon or departmentalized, teaching, which is having subject experts teach instead of one teacher for all subjects. Each teacher has become an expert in their core subject, which allows for highly effective differentiation for our students. We hope to support other schools in the district to adopt this learning environment.
A little short.
At YC Squared, we take pride in offering personalized learning experience that cater to each student's unique needs and strengths. We also offer unique learning opportunities such as virtual and in-person field trips, podcasts, drama club, ice skating, archery, orienteering, and service learning. By fostering an environment where every child can thrive, we ensure that learning is meaningful and engaging for all.
Good evening, everyone. At YC Square, we cherish the strong relationships that we have with families, who we call our learning partners. By being welcome into their homes each and every day virtually, we leverage this virtual and relationships with them, with every student reaching their fullest potential. At YC Square, all staff members are part of the Intensive Student Support Network. We take pride in our collective commitment to academic excellence by collaboratively owning and analyzing the data of our K-8 students. We work together to continuously improve and ensure each student's academic success.
YC Square's dedicated staff collaborate seamlessly to support our community. We are committed to facilitating optimum growth and academic success for all students. Our team skillfully tackles challenging situations and transforms them into opportunities for productivity. Staff are empowered to take initiative and offer assistance to the fullest extent possible. Together, we form the cohesive unit that is IPSY Connected Community School. Thank you.
Thank you so much, IPSY Connected, for sharing those wonderful points of pride about all the exciting learning opportunities that are happening for our students online. Let's give them another round of applause. Next, I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Zachary Ross to introduce the presentation on career and technical education.
Thank you. We have an additional point of pride, and so I'll ask if our student Dylan Presley would please come to the podium while we share about this wonderful student, this champion. Now, lately, Dylan has been the one speaking, and at this time, I would like to just share a little bit about him, and I'm sure then the board would like to maybe ask a few questions or if he might want to share. Let me just go ahead and brag about this scholar. It says here, he'll have an opportunity to brag some more. Ypsilanti Community High School student Dylan Presley is truly making a difference as a champion for career and technical education. We call it CTE. Through his experiences in the Ypsilanti Community Schools Engineering Manufacturing CTE program, Dylan has inspired others and advocated for expanded opportunities in this essential field. Over the past few months, he has demonstrated impressive leadership by presenting to the Michigan State Board of Education, where he highlighted the critical role of CTE in student development and addressed the pressing issue of CTE deserts in Michigan, particularly in Washtenaw County. His compelling testimony not only called for an increased funding for CTE programs, but also led to significant attention from the Michigan Department of Education. Dylan's ongoing efforts, including his participation in the WISD CTE brand immersion workshop and his impactful appearance at the Michigan Career Education Conference, showcase his dedication to creating a sustainable system of CTE opportunities. His remarkable leadership continues to inspire others to join him in advocating for the future of career and technical education for students across Michigan. YCS, the high school, our entire district is very proud, extremely proud, and we want to congratulate you, Dylan Presley, for your impressive leadership.
Thank you. I'll take any questions first. Any,
I love
any
it.
questions?
What field do you want to go into specifically?
Well, I was going into engineering, but little kind of curved a little bit. So we got a new Fennec robot is setting it up because everybody's using Fennec robots in the plants now because it's building everything. So I already know how everything's shifting more to robots doing stuff. So that's kind of what I want to go into. So when we get the right stuff set up, I'm going to switch over to robotics. I've been going to robotics after school. So I've been going to start it with that. But I'm still going to be doing engineering at the same time.
So I just want to manifest this opportunity for him. One, I know we're going to have a presentation from the WISD, but I think there needs to be a conversation about him being a brand ambassador. Along with that, I truly see that you're very well versed. You know what you're talking about. So I'm going to already manifest Dr. Presley, what you're going to be doing in the
That's
future.
right.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yes, trustee Goodrich.
Congratulations on all your hard work. It is always so exciting to have one of our scholars come and speak to us. Given your wealth of experience now, I would love to hear what advice you might have for school districts to increase access to this really important educational opportunity.
This program is so good. I think it can change lives because it changed mine. So if it can change one, it can change more. So I think that it can help lots of other people that really don't know what to do, or maybe some athletes that maybe just got injured and can't play sports anymore. So maybe they can find another career to do that can make some money and do what they actually like to do other than play sports. Another way out.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, trustee Fields.
And I'm sure it may be somewhere and I missed it if it is. So what are your plans like for college? Where are you going to be attending and what year are you? Because I'm probably have that, but I don't.
I'm a junior, so
Okay.
2026.
Okay. And have you already started applying to college accepted or what is what does that look like for you?
I'm gonna go to college for sure, and going to college for robotics and business, so I can go in the field and do some work at an internship too, so I can have some work experience. Then I will go to a plant to be a controls engineer and work with the robots.
Right. Good choice.
Yes.
Hi, thank you. I'm curious, Dylan, congratulations. All of what you've done has been amazing. I'm wondering how or what kind of things would you suggest or share with a student who is considering engaging with the CTE program?
I would say that it's more options, because when people just hear manufacturing, they probably just think of building something or just doing kind of one thing, but it's one thing that leads to a lot more. So it's not just manufacturing. You can go in that class and do 3D printing if you want to. You can go in that class and be an engineer, go in that class, go in to be robotics, go in a class, you can be a laborer if you want to, be an electrician. You can do so much more than what's led on to be. When people hear it, they think of it so small, but it's really something small that grows to be bigger. So I think that really everyone should need this in every school, everywhere. You're welcome.
Other board questions or comments? Dylan, we are so incredibly proud of you. And my question is really related to what sparked your interest and passion in CTE in the first place?
My dad.
All right, Dad.
Pretty lost before I moved with my dad. I didn't really know anything. I thought it was be an athlete, be a rapper, or work at McDonald's. So I moved with him because I wanted to get my life together. Wasn't doing too good in school, so I was like, I need to change it, get it together. So moved with him, and I seen what he was doing, so I looked more into it, and I seen that you can do way more in the world than just play sports and be a rapper. So I was like, it's just another way out. Let's put it like that. More opportunities for you, and it makes it feel like you can just do so much more than just a couple things. It feels like a lot. So I think that most people need an influence for it. I think more parents should know about it, and especially manufacturing, because I know someone that their parent don't want to let them switch out, but they want to go to manufacturing and they can't switch out because their parent won't let them. They think manufacturing is just about building stuff and getting dirty, but you can go do something different in there. You don't have to go build stuff if you really want to. You can go work on a robot, tap on the tablet all day. So I think that it should be a different narrative for it. Engineering should have a different narrative for, I said engineering, manufacturing should have a different narrative for what it really is instead of just one thing.
Outstanding. Know the sky is the limit. You can do anything, absolutely anything you put your mind to.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. I know that I'm inspired and incredibly impressed by this young scholar who has come and presented to us today. So I think this deserves all of us to stand up and give this young man a round of applause. Dylan, is your dad here? Dad, can you stand up for us? Awesome. Now I'll turn it back over to Dr. Zachary Ross. I'm just going to leave it with Dr. Zachary Ross for the next couple of presentation introductions.
Thank you, Madam President. Next, we will have, Dylan's been really talking about career technical education and some changes and what that really means. And we are really happy to have Dr. Ryan Rowe to come and to present to us some findings that we've been having as we've been working on expanding access to CTE, not only in our district and across our county. So thank you, Dr. Rowe.
Thank you very much, and appreciate the board allowing me an opportunity to be with you this evening. Dylan is our ambassador.
Okay.
Dylan is, and I am going to use Dylan as a proud example throughout this presentation. We need more Dylans. And he is just a shining example. Little did Mr. Presley know, Dylan's dad know, that he would be taking Dylan to numerous opportunities. And I'll discuss those this evening, but thank you again for allowing me the opportunity to be here. We are looking to expand access to a world-class system that exists, including here at Ypsilanti. When we mention applied and experiential learning, we talk about career technical education, but we may also talk about FIRST Robotics or Project Lead the Way or 1080 or dual enrollment opportunities or advanced placement. I can't think of a better way, a more authentic way to deliver all of those soft skills that we talk about than through hands-on relevant experiences like in career technical education. One thing that Dylan mentioned in front of 1,200 people at the Career Education Conference is that he has built relationships with the instructors in career technical education like Mr. Kim that has transformed and transcended his educational experience. So how do we get there? When we think about world-class education in Washtenaw County, we have to shift mindsets. So Dylan is helping shift the mindset of what manufacturing is and means. And same with career technical education. Vocational education that we may have grown up with is not the same CTE that exists today. We're launching new programs. So we'll talk about those programs that were launched here at Ypsilanti. We'll talk about the expanded access, which is really transitioned into more enrollment in CTE programs. We have to engage the community. So never have we had a time where in career technical education, all 9 public school district superintendents, Superintendent Norman at the ISD, workforce development, economic development, post-secondary institutions, and our business industry community are all on the same page saying we need career technical education access, expanded access in Washtenaw County. Co-creating a data-driven future. So we often talk about co-creating opportunities, and we're doing that based on data that we'll talk about this evening. And then constructing world-class. You know why? Because our students deserve it. They deserve to have world-class educational opportunities. So as the system as it is or was, is Washtenaw County is very unique in career technical education. We have a decentralized approach. We don't have a CTE center like a lot of communities have or counties have. Most of our programs are housed within our local high schools. Often, you may know as school board members, we struggle with transportation. We do throughout the state. And often when our students go to and from CTE opportunities, it's inefficient, complicated. Most of our teachers are not employees of the ISD like they are in some counties. They're employees of our local school districts. Enrollment is below demand. We'll talk about that tonight. How many students want to be enrolled in CTE if they had the opportunity and had access? We lack a countywide system of career awareness and exploration. And programming is funded through our general funds. We do not receive vocational funds through a tax levy or a millage, and we'll talk about that. But what we do have is a community, as I just explained, with energy and enthusiasm and commitment to expand access to CTE in Washtenaw County. So we're working with, to build the system, and we're working with schools, our K-12 institutions, the local school district superintendents, our businesses. Perhaps the most prominent one that you are well aware of is Driving Possibilities with Toyota Research and Development that have come to the table and said we want to leverage this opportunity. Our post-secondary institutions, so Washtenaw Community College, Eastern Michigan University, and U of M are all at the table participating in these opportunities. And then our community organizations, so Shamar at Michigan Work Southeast and Ann Arbor Spark, and a lot of our economic drivers are part of this conversation. So when we talk about deserts or career technical education deserts come in many forms and fashions. However, the underlying concern that we have with CTE deserts throughout the state of Michigan is that we would anticipate in an area like Washtenaw County that our CTE enrollment would be greater than it is due to a variety of factors, and we'll dive into that. When we don't have the access that the students need and deserve, it creates opportunity gaps, often for our most marginalized populations. And we've done the research with the state. So vocational millage funding happens throughout the state of Michigan. If you look at the map and you see any millage rate that is above 1.0, that was passed before 1994, before Prop A. Back then, you could pass a millage for vocational education for as much as you wanted, for as long as you wanted. So for instance, in Lenawee County, they have a CTE millage that was passed in the 70s. They passed a 2.9 mil levy, and they passed it for 99 years. If we were to go out for a millage today, you would only go up to 1 mil max, and you would have to go back to the voters for a renewal if it so passed. So 41 ISDs, 73% of the ISDs have a vocational millage in the state of Michigan, and the tax rate depends on that area. In Washtenaw County, because of the tax base that we have, if we were to pass a 1 mil vocational education millage, it would generate $20 million that would be dedicated to CTE funding. Right now, we pay for our CTE programming from Perkins funds, that's federal Perkins funds. We receive about $585,000 a year. And our added cost funds that's generated by the programs that exist. Between those two funding sources, we bring in about $1.4 million a year. The rest of that is paid for out of the general funds that you see here. To put it in perspective, Lenawee County that I just spoke of, Lenawee County has less students as a county than Ann Arbor Public Schools, and their vocational millage brings in about $14 million a year. We're operating off 1.4 million and then tapping into the general funds of the local school districts. The 15 ISDs with no vocational millage are listed here. Washtenaw County is one of those. Most of these counties outside of Washtenaw and Livingston, Macomb, a lot of these are rural counties that have to rely on other sources of revenue, but Washtenaw County is one of those that are remaining without that funding source. Often, if you don't have a vocational millage, it creates inequities to access that we have today. What can vocational millages be used for? CTE readiness activities. And that can be leading at the elementary and middle school levels to high school programs that Dylan is in today. So your middle school team that participated in 1080 last year, that traveled out of state and competed, that's a CTE readiness activity potentially leading to some CTE high school courses. Maintenance and repair, replacement of physical buildings, salary and benefits for your vocationally certified staff, curriculum and assessment cost, transportation cost, and it would free up some general fund dollars. Not all funding is equal. So if you have a student that is like Dylan that wants to take a industry recognized certification, and that certification costs $100 or $150, we have some ServSafe certifications in the culinary program that might be $50. That's an additional cost. So when we talk about the money that we receive from added cost funding in Perkins to equate to about $679 per student, that doesn't go very far when you're talking about some expensive programs to run. So our efforts that include, I call it the four-legged stools. You have vocational millage perhaps, but we also have our business industry partners like Toyota Research and Development, U of M Health that we work with. We have our post-secondary partners. We had a meeting today with Washtenaw Community College in Eastern Michigan, participating and helping, and also legislative means that Dylan advocated for. They're working alongside this. So we don't think that one funding avenue is all of it. We know it has to be collaboration between all four entities. However, if we have a funding model and we move forward, it could decrease CTE deserts and opportunity gaps, increase students that would graduate from high school with a purpose, like Dylan's, increase students exploring career paths much earlier. We know that we can't wait till a student's in 11th grade. It must start in elementary and middle school. Increase students earning an industry recognized credential. Dylan, I think, has now earned 80 certificates or credentials related to engineering, 3D printing, robotics, and increase student engagement at an earlier age. So if we expand access and opportunity, we can have resource allocation. Some of those general funds could be allocated elsewhere. We can increase that program quality by state-of-the-art equipment and supplies, materials, and resources. And certainly we can increase the quantity of programs as well. On the left-hand side is what we operated with for a long period of time. And then all of those circles on the left-hand side where it says proposed, we went from about 53 programs to well over 70 now expanding programs, including at Ypsilanti, where we went from automotive and collision and culinary to expand to cosmetology, TV and radio broadcasting, and the engineering machining program that Dylan's in today. Not only do we expand those CTE programs that, such as the one that Dylan's in today, but that led to other means of SMA Prime and other opportunities that leverage that opportunity to partner with a CTE program. We could do this all day long. We could expand programs all day long. We do not have the finances to pull it off. We've even had success having vocationally certified teachers like Mr. Kim come straight from business industry, a non-traditional teaching background. Most of our teachers in CTE today are coming from non-traditional backgrounds. in Washtenaw County, we've been very fortunate to find those teachers out of business industry. However, paying for that program is a challenge. I find this fascinating. So at the same time, over the last 4 years, that our 9th through 12th grade population, enrollment population, has decreased, our CTE enrollment has increased dramatically. Even looking at Ypsilanti High School in particular, coming out of COVID, 30 to 40 students enrolled in CTE programming. This year, 125 students are enrolled in career technical education programs at Ypsilanti Community High School. I mean, that's outstanding. I hope that those other 124 are just like Dylan and finding their purpose and passion. So how did we do that? If we don't have the funding mechanism to expand programming, to expand access to enrollment, how did we pull that off? Well, in 21-22, we received just over $500,000 in CTE equipment funds because legislation offered us, as a non-millage funded county, money to invest in our CTE programs. So collision, automotive, cosmetology, Mr. Kim's program, all benefited from CTE equipment. The next year, we received $576,000 in CTE equipment. Last year, we received $1.153 million in CTE equipment. That allowed us to expand programming, outfit that lab, and begin to teach students. This year, the 24-25 school year, 0 funds. So we are at a tipping point where we have to recommend a funding model or we have to rely on other means. We went out and with the superintendent's leadership, we went out and applied for a school consolidation and infrastructure fund. We received $250,000 to study the inequities of CTE access in Washtenaw County. So that helped pay for some positions, such as myself, to lead this initiative. And then based on those findings of the U of M Youth Policy Lab report on the inequities, the findings there gave us recommendations to follow. We applied for the consolidation of services to implement those findings, and we received $5 million. That $5 million is leading this charge today to look at a consolidation of our 4 consortiums. Ypsilanti Community Schools running their CTE programs, Ann Arbor running their CTE programs, Whitmore Lake running their CTE programs, and then the Southwest Washtenaw Consortium of 6 districts running theirs. I want to go back right here. Out of these 71 CTE programs that exist in the county, guess how many of these programs are open to students from all 9 districts? Any student from any district can enroll in one of these programs. None of these. Where you reside is where you can attend. So if you're an IPSI student, you can enroll in IPSI programs. Lincoln has some arrangements that they could come back and forth. The Southwest Washtenaw Consortium does. But for a majority of these programs, where you reside is where you can attend. We're trying to tear down those barriers and allow access. So Ypsilanti is the only school in the county that has a collision repair and program. So IPSI and Lincoln students are able to participate with that. In Saline, there's a welding program. That's the only one in the county. We should have a welding program in every school in the county. We need that many welders. That's the expansion we're looking for. So this is where Dylan went up on December 10th with 3 other students and testified to the State Board of Education and State Superintendent Dr. Michael Rice. And I put the press release in your packet. That response in January, that press release was based in part by Dylan's testimony on expanding access for CTE students, specifically in CTE deserts, but increasing funding for all CTE programs throughout the state. So the big picture alignment is with the top 10 strategic education plan at Michigan. We're not on an island, maybe in a desert, we're not on an island when it comes to this initiative. Everyone agrees that all 5 of these could be reached if we expand CTE programming in Washtenaw County. So a history of unequal access. So I just want to walk through this really quick on this isn't something the superintendents have been working on for the last 12 months or 14 months. It has been for a long period of time and has been a laser-like focus on expanding access to CTE. In April of 2019, the University of Michigan Youth Policy Lab that's right in our backyard, we commissioned them to look at CTE access in Washtenaw County. This was pre-COVID. Their findings were we have a lack of widespread familiarity with CTE overall, CTE courses align with emerging occupations, and their desire to expand programming, even in 2019. In January 2020, the state went out and said, we're going to work with the U of M Youth Policy Lab, and we're going to study career technical education in Michigan. How does access look for any student in the state of Michigan? And you can see 50% of all Michigan students enroll in CTE courses. Female, Black, and economically disadvantaged students are less likely to participate. And we have a significant challenge when it comes to a lot of our opportunities, our occupational opportunities. We went back to the U of M Youth Policy Lab in December 2021 and said, maybe we just don't have the demand in Washtenaw County for CTE. We do. Demand for CTE is equal across all districts, and students will participate at a high level if they're provided easy access to those programs. And off-campus and neutral site tests possibilities of what we might be able to offer on a county-wide scale rather than within the traditional high school. The state went right back in December 2022 and found out as a state how access to CTE varies. And then we went back in July. This study was paid for out of that consolidation grant, so no cost to the districts. And we found that all Washtenaw students have less access on average than the state average to CTE programs. Now, how is that possible? In Washtenaw County, our students should have more access than students on the statewide average. Access is dependent on which district and building a student attends. Low-income, Black, Hispanic students have less access to CTE. And there are many opportunities in front of us that can increase access for students, including exploring funding models. So money matters. Every dollar that's put into CTE, $5 returned to the state economy. Dylan and others have earned credentials through their programs. They've earned post-secondary awards and supplemental credentials as value-added ways to go on to college and career. In the 127 rule, so out of any entity, any organization, whether that's the University of Michigan, Health, if it's Toyota Research and Development, if it's Zoller or Liebherr Aerospace, any world-class company that we have in this area has the 127 rule. Out of every 10 employees, 1 requires a master's degree or more, 2 employees have a bachelor's degree, and 7 individuals have an associate's degree, certificate, or credential employed for that institution. And when you think about University of Michigan Health and the health system, you think about your RNs and your x-ray technicians, your maintenance workers, your food service employees that help run a world-class company. There's a lot of individuals, then we need every single one of them. So what we're doing currently is we're building capacity with our positions out of that $5 million. So we've hired individuals to help on a countywide scale. We've never had countywide service and support. It's always been through the local district. So in concert with the local district superintendents, we've hired a career technical education coordinator. Marshawn Brooks is in the back. He's from Chicago Public Schools, just joined us. We've hired a work-based learning coordinator to connect business industry with the students. So if Dylan wanted to go out and work for a company, we would help coordinate that between the family, the student, and the district. Eric Jackson, proud Ypsi High School graduate. A special populations coordinator, Jackson Greenstone. And we have a CTE grant management coordinator, Alette Collins. Thank you a lot. We also do data and reporting through Charlie Jones. Charlie's not here this evening. We're looking at 3 countywide programs, aviation, aerospace. So I was able to travel with Carlos and Chelsea to Atlanta to study this. This would be a FAA Part 107 drone pilot certification. We're bringing that to Ypsi High School. We're going to pilot 2 programs, one at Ypsi High School, one at Lincoln High School. Start with those 2 in the fall. Ramon Crow is going to lead that charge. He just retired after 37 years with the FAA to lead this initiative along with us. That will be monumental. The best business entrepreneurship, sports, and tourism leadership program. So let's just take Dylan, for instance. Dylan said he wants to be an engineer. He's a junior. He's successfully completing his engineering technology program right now. This, what we'll launch in the fall, is a pilot program for any student that has an entrepreneurial spirit. Let's say that Dylan says, I want to start my own business. Next year, each district will have a couple slots to pilot this program where a student will take a class with Professor Anthony Terry over at Washtenaw Community College, one class in the fall, one class in the spring, one class in the summer following their senior year, and walk away with a management certificate on their way to college and career. This will be aligned with the business industry. And our last one, engineering construction trades. So we want to expand access to engineering construction so that Ypsilanti High School students, if they so choose, could participate in an engineering construction program. So we'd like to have these regional sites for building trades in construction. Our unions are on board, our tradespeople are on board, our post-secondary institutions are on board, and Washtenaw Community College is revitalizing their construction tech program based on this initiative as another post-secondary option. And finally, we're developing communication, marketing, and branding strategy, of which Dylan has been part of all of this. Dylan took place in our messaging, internal and external, our countywide logo, our countywide messaging, our countywide publications. And last week, Rhodes Branding and Marketing came in a firm, and they're doing a video on each of these career pathways. And I'll let you guess who was featured in one of those 90-second videos. So you'll see that as well. And we're working on branding and marketing. We're working on a report to the community, and we've done some survey and focus groups, and we've really worked with the student leadership here at Ypsilanti to give us their student voice and what they'd like to see. It's not the adults dictating what that may be. It's the student voice saying, this is what we want and need. So our CTE design process, we started this in 2019. Exploration and fact finding kind of led to 2023, where we started to launch some more programs. March and April 2024 did some visioning work with our economic developers and business industry leaders that said we're all in. In August, the superintendents met with their retreat with those business industry community leaders, and they all said we're all in. We formed advisory groups looking at those career pathways and where we want to head. We are building community commitment and investment. And on March 18th, we'll have a community summit at Washtenaw Community College. We will invite you to participate. Dylan may be the keynote speaker. Doesn't know that yet. Yeah. But he'll be a part of it, I can tell you that. And then November 2025, we hope to recommend a system of equitable access to CTE programming in the county, along with a potential funding model. I would entertain any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Dr. Rowe, for your presentation. One of the questions I have is that over 30 plus years ago, we did have a very viable RCTC program at Ypsi. Go Braves. Have you all looked at any past data or information in how that program was, its pros, its cons, you know, how it maintained its sustainability through over those years? I know one of the major issues that we ran into, of course, was when we had the crash with GM, Ford leaving the area, and then also Pfizer. So in situations like that with this program, have you all looked at, if there's a possibility of any type of shift in the economy, how this program will still sustain itself?
That's a phenomenal question. And we've been very, very fortunate when I've talked to the superintendents at their monthly meeting. I don't know if I could accurately answer that without our $5 million in funding through that grant. That has empowered us to work with some world-class organizations like the U of M Youth Policy Lab, Hanover Research, and others locally, and Arbor Spark, Shamar Heron at Michigan Works Southeast, to really dig in and pay for some data findings that we have. Can we plan for all of that? Probably not, but we're doing some really good predicting on what may occur and how we would pivot if that occurred.
I'm wondering, so I noticed on, I'm not sure what page it was on. I think it might have been the second page or the third page, but you'll know what I'm talking about when I ask the question. So I noticed that there is this lack of widespread kind of awareness about CTE programming. Does part of your research, communication, and marketing plan speak to that? And it doesn't explicitly call it out on this slide, but what are kind of some of your plans to raise that awareness, get the word out so that more people know about what options are available through CTE?
Thank you very much. So a few things. One, our Hanover research that's taking place with our focus groups and our survey. So over 4,000 people responded to that survey on what they believe experiential and applied learning, including CTE, means to them. If I walked in with a piece of paper today, we would have that many different answers to what career technical education looks like. So our messaging and branding and survey, we will put together a very succinct message on what we're trying to achieve and what CTE means to us. They're going to hand that over to Forthright, another firm we're working with, to do a report to the community on all of the data that was collected out of those 4,000 individuals, parents, educators, administrators, business industry leaders, and students. What do we as a collective determined CTE to mean to us? And then we're going to hand that Forthright report over at the summit, the CTE summit that we're having on the 18th. After that, the report to the community. And then finally, the roads branding and marketing. We are going to reach, we'll use social media, we're going to use print. We have the funds out of that consolidation grant, thank goodness, to articulate this so that we are talking the same language when it comes to CTE. Developing a website, a communication specialist, all that will be dedicated to this effort so that the word is out there that this is a pathway through college, not around college. Yep. Right.
How that goes into that. So that's why some of the parents, I would say, if they're, especially if they want their students to go to university, they need to have a clear understanding how those students decide. And exactly what I was asking, and while you were talking about that, you're gonna have, survey, put it in layman's terms so they understand, like you just said, that'll make a big difference. They want me, especially, I wanted to know. How is that going to affect my grandson as he's a junior? Right. How is it he's also in the process?
That's right.
And how look at that when they go to apply. So would you have others who come into your English, math, whatever, and these classes that are subject to before them? So for me, as a grandparent living on a senior, I would like to see that, but you want it to be in terms so they understand. You don't want big words, you want it to break it down for those so that when they're looking at it, they understand that in a sense of not coming from the way really small. Okay, that's the connection.
So in other words, on this page 10, a history of unequal access, December 2022, low-income Black and Hispanic students have less overall access to CTE and less likely to attend schools with at least one CTE program. So what did you do, or what are you going to do to help them?
Yep. So that's where our focus in the last 3 years of those CTE equipment grant and expanding programs has been on IPSI and Lincoln. And that's where SME Prime, the grant, and the $400,000 for Mr. Kim's program came through those efforts. You will see that the Southwest Washtenaw Consortium, the 6 districts that work together, not one program has been expanded in there. In fact, Dr. Lotch, the superintendent, Celine said, and he's been part of bringing me to the ISD to say, we can do better. And you know who we need to concentrate on, period. So this is all 9 superintendents philosophically agree on our efforts, and we've been laser-like focused on our expansion on the east side of this county.
And did that include African-American females also?
Yeah, and then I'll share the U of M Youth Policy Lab report with you. They did a very good job, and it is we look at the non-traditional fields. So we want women in welding. We want men in healthcare. There's so many different areas with Jackson Greenstone, Special Populations Coordinator, that we're looking at specific student populations that should be enrolled, and yet that demand is not equating to the access that should be allowed.
So be clear that all 9 superintendents hired him to do this work. We commissioned this work. We said that this will be our priority. We made every single meeting. We brought in Shamar before he worked for Southwest Consortium. So we stole him. So we said that this will be our collective work throughout these few years. We didn't know what the data said at first.
Nope.
But we sat down at a retreat, as you said, in 2019, and collectively said that this would be our work. We talked to Kalamazoo about what they had done to make sure they had a collective funding source. We looked at as other counties came together, what worked for them, what didn't work for them. We had a lot of presentations before we even started the work and asked for any funds. And that's when we came up with this collective voice of, nope, we do not need any additional funds for certain areas because they already are saturated. They have access, they have buses, they have things right at their fingertips. These others, as funds come in, we collectively agreed that we would not put money in places that were already saturated. We put money, as the state gave us money, everyone agreed out of the 9 that we put money in districts like Ypsi, like Lincoln. And we decided that, as you saw in there, Ypsi was the place that we would be, and then like Lincoln joins us. And so we worked to ensure, because there was no place for our students to go on this side of the county. And then we thought, okay, now we've got to have the research there with the data. And then we have to have collective language, because what we call, some people are calling it vocational. Some people are calling it CTE. Now we're talking about applied work, right? So like we have to have a collective voice, and then what this means, because in some areas of the county, you're right, they're thinking we're taking away from college credits, whereas we changed our whole commencement ceremony to ensure that everyone has stackable credentials so that you had opportunities to know what's next. So we're not afraid of it. We understand the articulation agreements between Washtenaw Community College, Eastern Michigan, U of M, and all the others. And so we're having to make sure that there's this shared understanding. If we're going to have a shared fiduciary, we've got to make sure that no matter where you are, if you're a district that already has the funds, that you're understanding, just like districts where we do have more brown and Black students, that we all can collectively agree that this is the same funding source. So that's kind of where we're working together, because even though the superintendents agree, the communities are, some people are still thinking this is the quote unquote words vocational, to these other people like Dylan, who's like, no, this applied work now is how amusement parks are built, how hearts are now being repaired in hospitals. Like this is a form of access that people are looking at. If you look at in Dubai, they're having whole AI colleges and universities. This is an expanded access that other people are seeing as assets. And we've got to make sure everyone in the county sees this as asset-based. And for us to be the most knowledgeable, the most educated county in this state, there's no way we should be a CTE desert.
Any other board questions or comments?
My last question would be, in regards to when we have these students get these stackable credentials, the pass off to the next institution that they go, I think we need to just really look at what that really looks like to make sure that they get there and that they're prepared for the send off. Because I want to make sure if we're going to align students with all of these credentials, I really would like to know what that data looks like of how many of them there are actually utilizing the credentials. Because if we're going to be changing lives, that's a very important piece of that, to make sure that, you know, this is a successful program and that it's sustainable.
Agreed. Thank you so much. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you. All right, next, Dr. Zachary Ross will introduce our next presentation on the FAFSA Challenge.
Thank you, Madam President. To continue with this conversation, it is very important to us that our seniors are ready for their next steps. And we have both of our high school building leaders here with us, Dr. Chelsea Harris Hugan and Principal Leslie Davis, to talk about how the Universal FAFSA Challenge is connected to what is happening with our senior portfolio. Many people are hearing about this challenge and are concerned about, is there lack of access? And we are looking at it from a different lens, and we want to make sure that there's an understanding of what that lens is, because we want our students to have those options when and if they want to take advantage. And so thank you so much to the both of you for being here today.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Thank you for having us this evening.
Leslie, Principal Davis, passed around just what we'll be kind of going through and talking about tonight. I'm going to start this as well, so that everybody can kind of take a look at what the finished product kind of looks like for our seniors as we start doing this work or continuing this work. So just so that you can kind of pass it around and see what it looks like. So we were awarded money for the FAFSA Challenge. Yes, right? Kudos to everybody. And what that looks like for our students, we've always, both of us, and even when I was the principal at ACE, worked to ensure that all of our students completed FAFSA. We did a senior project where they completed FAFSA, did a bunch of a whole entire portfolio that you'll see. And at senior checkout, there's a checkout list at the very beginning as far as what all of the things that they need to have prepared and placed into that binder. We moved it this year to a binder because it looks wonderful. I'm going to share a really quick story. We hired Haidar Ghali, who is a former student graduated with us 2 years ago. We hired him as a TA, teacher's assistant, for our auto repair. And he came and we did the whole entire interview. And at the end, I said, okay, you're going to have to get all of your credentials together. And he said, Dr. Hugan, this is my portfolio that we did 2 years ago with all of my credentials in there. And when I opened that, it warmed my heart to see all of these because you hear, like, I hear about it, right? And I see, like, I go in Mr. Kim's room, you can see all the credentials and all of that, but to actually see the next step of it, a student walking in with that and saying, here are all the credentials that I earned here, just, it was amazing. So we wanted to move it to a binder because he had it in a folder. And I was like, how much, when we talk about being teachers and getting your teaching certificate, you have to present your portfolio and the work that you've done. So why not, if we're moving this, and like Dylan said, changing the narrative, let's do this so that when they go to a job or go somewhere, they look professional and can present that way. So that's the goal with the binder and the checklist, and ensuring that all those things are there. In that is, yep,
The FAFSA challenge, wanna take it.
Okay, so we had the opportunity to apply for funding to support our staff and our students with completing the FAFSA, because recognizing that there are a lot of challenges that are posed when it comes to completing, having documentation available, the training that's required for staff to support parents as they complete the FAFSA. So we put together a proposal of how we would spend the funds. So if you take a look at the document, the two-page document that was shared, we selected 4 areas to allocate the funding. And the first and the largest is the student engagement and support. So that's inclusive of offering students incentives, having guest speakers, taking them on college tours, exploring different careers that are available to them, having summer programming, preparing them to be leaders in the world, and then preparing them for the tests that they would take, so the SAT and other tests like that. The second piece was parent communication and engagement, so bringing the parents in to kind of inform them of the opportunity, all the funds that are available for the state of Michigan, for students once they complete the FAFSA, just so that they know what the why is behind the request for students to complete the FAFSA. And then the area of staff support and professional development. So making sure that our college advisors, our counselors, and in my case, anyone who's working with students to support them in this college process is knowledgeable about what information is required. So that way they can inform the parents and they bring all required materials with them during that first meeting. So we don't necessarily have to keep having them come back. And then the last area is the community partnerships and data. So design, implement, monitor, evaluate. So every process that we go through, we kind of use that acronym. So making sure that we're monitoring how this goes, which students have completed the FAFSA, which haven't, what's the rationale for the families that haven't completed it yet, and how we get them in, because our goal is 100% completion. So when you take a look at the funding we have in the areas that we focused on, it kind of ties everything together nicely. The portfolio, the work that we're doing with the staff, and we bring everyone together to ensure that we have polished professionals in the making as they graduate from Ypsilanti Community Schools. Thank you. What questions might you have? Yes, Vice President Lee.
So when do you start the process for the FAFSA?
So for, and I can only speak for A students, our process may look a little different because we have rolling graduation. So as soon as the student completes the application for the college, for instance, Washtenaw Community College, they send you a checklist. And I believe number 1 on the checklist is probably completing the FAFSA. So the colleges are encouraging students to do the same thing. So when we do this, we want them to have the portfolio developed. So if they have other colleges in mind, when they complete their FAFSA, they send it to multiple colleges instead of just one.
Okay, so if it's due, so when is the application due for it?
So I think it opens, December 1st, something like that. So it's available starting December 1st, and they have probably until right before the school year ends almost to complete it for that year.
Okay, so do you also help them to fill out scholarships that's
Yes.
available? So you
That
let
if you-
them know when the scholarships are due.
Mhm. So if you take a look at the checklist, it's the second page. One of those items is completing scholarship applications. So there are local, and then a lot of colleges offer scholarships too. So once we find out which college the student would like to attend, we ensure that they not just do the ones that are available locally, but also the ones for their college.
And then we have the presentation that's coming Wednesday. D9 is coming to do a presentation about scholarships and what offerings they have there. Then the students will be able to go downstairs and kind of talk one-on-one with the folks that are offering those scholarships. We also have a career success coach through the University of Michigan. It changes every 2 years, and she supports both ACE and the high school to make sure that those scholarships get to the students, get in the hands of the students that will qualify for those. So we've got multiple scholarships. I think last year we gave over 4 million. And I have to look, don't test me on it. In scholarship money that was available to both of our students.
And so I want to interject that we just applied and got awarded this and wanted to bring this forward because this work has been done without those additional funds. So now that they've written this, they're able to then say, okay, if someone needs to do some incentives, if we need to have a night, if we need to do some things, these funds will be able to be used. There was a part about about this that was missing that I want to make sure the board knows about. So before, we've always had this on the check on this senior project requirements. And as I always said, the requirements, I just really want to emphasize part of what they said with the universal FAFSA, and this is the controversial part. So I really want to emphasize that people say, oh, it's required for them to fill out the FAFSA. What happens if they don't? Does that keep them from graduating? What happens? And so parents can opt out. The administrators can say, hey, we tried and we don't have the information, because obviously you need information from like tax information and things that we don't have. So we can walk you through some of the application, but we don't have information from the household. So there are multiple opt-out opportunities. So there's no student in Ypsilanti Community Schools who would not graduate if they didn't fill out the form. We just want to make sure we're doing anything and everything, even if they say, I don't think I'm going to go to a college, I'm doing this. Okay, it's part of your senior, because what if they do decide at the last minute, I want to go, and then they as you talked about, it's important deadline. And if they haven't applied or hadn't even known what opportunities there are, and then they change their mind, something happens, happens, at least they apply. It doesn't hurt, it's not going to, if they don't access the funds from some college or university or trade program, it's not going to take away from the family. It will hurt if they haven't applied and the deadline has passed. So I just want to put that out there because people have this concept of, oh my goodness, if you put this requirement, you're going to keep somebody from graduating. And that's the last thing we want to do. We want to make sure, so I don't want the board to think like they missed that part of the presentation.
And I have one more. So with the scholarships, the deadlines for those, do you give them the information for that too?
Yeah.
Because I know like the Ann Arbor Area Foundation Scholarship, that deadline is February 13th. So did they get that information?
So if that society reached out to the high school and gave us the information, we shared that with all of our students. We have a Google Classroom for scholarships. So whenever our success coach gets any information, Kappa just sent their information. Remy,
The
the
Zay
arts,
issues
yeah.
have a scholarship.
Yep. Yeah.
The
So
D9 organizations
completely,
typically.
yep. So once we get that information, it's shared with the students and placed in the Google Classroom with the deadlines. We also go out and say, hey, you should apply for this scholarship. We kind of identify those students that would benefit from applying for those scholarships. And we kind of sit on them until they apply.
And if I can add, a lot of what you'll find in the portfolio is beneficial for students, and they have things on hand to apply for the scholarship, so they don't have to write their essays over and over again. They can recycle the essays and just tweak it for the needs of each scholarship. I do also want to mention that although we don't have a counselor, the team at Park Ridge has been instrumental in supporting our students with the college and financial aid process. So there is someone that will come over to work with our students, so they have the same opportunity, even though we don't have the same staffing that they have at the high school.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Espy.
Hi, thank you. Really excited to see that folks are going to have this clear checklist. And I'm curious, at what point in time are you starting to have these conversations with students, right? So this is a senior project requirement, but I'm assuming, right, for FAFSA, obviously you want to be looking at that in junior year. If you're talking about testing, you might want to be looking about that in sophomore year. So when are students being introduced to this process? And
We-
when are families and students being introduced to this process?
We introduced at about 11th grade.
Okay.
So at the beginning of 11th grade, we start talking about senior projects. We start talking about what needs to go in there so that it's not the night before checkout. They're trying to grab everything under the sun and put all these things in there. We've got our counselors meeting with students right now. We've got some students that pretty much have that already together because they've been working at it. They've done the FAFSA, they've done the completion for scholarships, they've done most all of the things that are there. So their thing is, I'm gonna assemble it in my binder, and when it's time to do senior checkout, I'll go to each of the stations and check out, yep, you've got your FAFSA, yep, you've got your SAT scores, you've got everything in here, and now here's your cap and gown.
Beautiful. Yeah. And I'm really pleased to see that this is, yes, you have the binder, but this is also seems to be something they're building digitally as well, which I think is really critical because I think it's particular with those essays or things like that, especially with the modification that they're going to have to do. And most of our systems are digital in terms of getting that information out. So really pleased to see that it is this physical piece so you can like see it, but also that a lot of that's actually going to be taking place in the digital space. So yeah, thank you for that. And I mean, I think I really appreciate the thoroughness in this and like the number of things in here. I know personally, I had spreadsheets going when I was applying for schools and things like that of what things I had to get in and what deadlines they had. And so this is really helpful. And I think I'm imagining within that, for example, like letter of recommendation, are you all providing like context around like what it looks like to build a rapport with a teacher or get to the place where you're going to actually ask someone for a recommendation? So that way they're not just showing up to like any person's office saying, I need an adult to like write something about me, even though I haven't been in your classroom that often, right? So those are things that you all are preparing the students for?
Networking opportunities. I don't know if you've had a chance to see any of the videos that came from ACE, but we've had students that interviewed for the Humans of Ipsy project, the mayor, and a lot of other, significant figures in the city. So they are working on it now in preparation for what's going to come later.
Amazing. Thank you.
We do something very similar. We just today had Wolverine Pathways come and they talked about completing an application and they team up with the 9th graders and follow them all the way through the 12th grade. So that support and those relationships are there. But we also talked about in that meeting the importance of building relationships with teachers so that you can go and say, hey, would you mind writing a recommendation and what that looks like and what it looks like for you as a scholar to go and ask, can you write a recommendation? So keeping a good relationship open and even having a 9th grade teacher that you can go back to when you get in the 12th grade, because the wonderful thing about it is teachers that have been your 9th grade teachers and they get to 12th grade and they are like overwhelmed with joy that, oh my goodness, look at your accomplishments, look at what you've done. So just keeping those relationships positive for sure.
Oh, Trustee Goodrich.
Sorry, I just wanted to tag on to that piece about recommendation letters. As an educator who's in the throes of recommendation letter writing season right now, I really appreciate so much the value of the work that you're putting in advance and just making sure those students have that investment in their future potential, even if they decide to take a gap year, even if they don't think they're going straight to college, to have those letters in hand and then to be able to go back to those educators who can remember the wonderful things that student did and can really powerfully speak to that, even if it's years later. So I really appreciate the foresight and the skill building that you're doing there.
Yes, Trustee Sutton Kennedy, and then Trustee Fields, and then Trustee Townsend.
Thank you. I see that in the portfolio here, it says that the students are creating an educational development plan through Zello, and I'm not familiar with Zello, so I just was wondering if you could share a little bit about what that means and what the students are getting from that.
Yeah, like
Oh, okay. So years ago, it was called career cruising, and it's an opportunity starting in probably middle school for students to kind of look at what their interests are, where they lie, and what possible career opportunities that turns into for them. So starting in ninth grade, they work in Zello and they complete like certain tasks to kind of give them some clarity about who they are as a person, what they're good at, what things they don't like to do, and turn that into a potential career. So on the other side of that, having speakers coming into the building to talk to them about the different careers, because one of the scariest things for an 18-year-old is to decide what they want to do for the rest of their lives when they're leaving school. So giving them opportunities to hear people and have that experience through their eyes so they know if that's something that is feasible for them or not, right? Is this something I even want to do before I go to school and invest 4 years of time and all of this money into this? So Zello helps with that. And it's something that's provided by the district and every student has access to it.
That's amazing. Thank you so much.
One of the things, just to piggyback off of what Principal Davis said, is that EDP, when we talk about creating stackable credentials, when we talk about creating career pathways that don't fit into the traditional 4 years, is that EDP allows us to create a personal curriculum for those students that, as long as it aligns with that educational development plan, we can substitute some of those classes so that we can say, okay, you can go into robotics and do D3C3 robotics in the morning, and then you can also dual enroll and do some of those liberal arts classes at the same time. But that EDP allows us that flexibility so that we, one, still are able to offer them a Michigan Merit certificate, and also really, really hone into where their desires and their passions are.
The individualized support for each student, I think, and that's what we're aiming to do, provide an individualized experience, not just a cookie cutter, this is what everyone is going to do.
What's the retention like for that part? I like the digital portfolio. I like that. How's that retained? Like, say they lost, because Google, we know is access based, password based or whatever. But if they lose it or don't have access, how long are you retaining those for students when they just contact you?
We keep it. I
You,
keep it.
oh, okay. So you have like a, big storage of, like, because this is not the first year, but so if they lose them or they need to have access, then, computer wise or whatever, but. Okay.
And we encourage students to create a personal email address so that they can transfer everything from their school email address to their personal email address to access once they leave us.
Great. Thank you.
So there's a couple of things that I feel need to be amended to this or added, just because it will influence, possible opportunity in their portfolio. One, I think if they do have an IEP, that information probably should be included in that in some way because of the benefits of what services come with that. So part of when students go away to any place that they go, they should know how to properly advocate for themselves. So if it's not necessarily in this particular binder for confidentiality, at least there is a reference place. They have it saved electronically for themselves. Okay. Because that again goes up to age 26, as you all know. A list, of course, of honors and awards, and if they have any type of community service, that should be noted. And then something where there's probably some interview readiness, some type of class or something that helps them to prepare for interviews, whether it's for scholarships, whether it's for the institution that they're going, that they're prepared, they know how to dress, how to present themselves. We offered that, I know, in a class here before, but I think it's necessary here.
We still do that. We still do the mock interviews and all of that. We just didn't put it here as a checklist, but we still do that piece.
It's also something we do school-wide. We have a career fair, and the students have an opportunity to actually go through an interview with potential employers.
Thank you.
Yes, trustee.
Yeah, I would like just to add on to what trustee Townsend was speaking about. Particularly that piece about for students who are accessing special services. I know, for example, with like students who experiencing homelessness, they may not have their parents fill this out if they are independent, right? And so filling out a FAFSA when you are independent looks very different than if you were filling it out with your family. And even for those students, you can still utilize what was documented in high school 2 or 3 years later, right? And so how are you all making sure that students have those access needs met, I guess, if they are in a situation where they're accessing special services? Are there amendments or additional pieces to this that are available to students who might need to have those other pieces checked, right? Those other boxes checked, or additional pieces around like advocacy work, or talking to, like, whether it's like someone who needed to talk to like a Blaven scholar if they were experiencing or in foster care or something like that. So
I think that the staff training and the professional development that we provide the staff that's doing this work, I think that will be covered in that area. So they'll understand that each student may have individual needs. So they may have to reframe the conversation with the student based on what the living situation is for the family or what the parental situation is for the student.
And I was gonna say, I see her squirreling in her seat, and I just want to address the fact that we have a profession, a secondary, can you please stand, Missy? I don't think, because the parents might not know, so can you please stand? We have a person in charge specifically of secondary support services who goes to every IEP, who's in charge of every transitional service. I think she wants to say, because she was squirreling over there. This is her entire job to do exactly what you guys said. So we don't put, the checklist is in general.
Mhm.
So we do have,
ahead.
and I didn't want to hijack the meeting. We do have, we do have a modified version of this for students who do have, who are exceptional learners. That includes some of the pieces you were talking about. Their summary of performance when they graduate, their accommodations list. I also, and at both schools, the case managers help them in applying for those accommodations when they apply for the college applications as well. So when they receive their acceptance letters back, we then go through and help them apply for those accommodations that they would get through college. So there is kind of an addendum to this for the special ed students.
Even after they graduate, because I think that was part of your question too, even after they graduate, we have students that come in and out, and I know you do too, all day, that we're still writing acceptance letter, recommendation letters. We're still helping people find jobs. We're still getting people into college. Like, they come with the baby, and we hold the baby and play with the baby and do the work at the same time. So we never close. Like, I know we never close.
I know we had, I'm sorry.
I was
go
just
ahead.
going to say thank you for that. And absolutely, I know I've referred students to their counselor from years ago. And if that person's not there, the principal's working to figure out what reports or what paperwork is there. So thank you. Thank you for doing that. But I just wanted to make sure on that. Thanks.
Yep, I know we had a conversation earlier just in regards to the FAFSA, and I just want to make sure that we have supports outside of the district itself, just in case needed, for those special situations where students do not, or parents are not going to fill out the form. I understand they can opt out. However, if the form still needs to be completed, and there's still, it's that gray area, so that student still gets that support, because I was one of those students that was in that gray area, that we need to just still make sure that we have other outside resources who specialize specifically in financial aid that can assist students in the district.
You do. I heard yes. I heard yes.
Any other board? Oh. Yes. Any other board questions or comments? I think this is phenomenal. Thank you for presenting this to us and expanding access and opportunities for our students. I think also what's important about this portfolio is that because this process is overwhelming for parents and students, and this really organizes it for them. And I think attaching deadlines to it as well helps students to understand and realize that the quicker you get your FAFSA in, right, you have more access to available dollars, whether that be grants, work study, like, so being able to kind of just package it. And so students understand where they don't think like, I just got to fill out another form, understanding the relevance and why it matters, irregardless of whatever decision they make post-graduation. So thank you so much for your time and sharing this. And I'm so glad that we have dedicated resources to expand this support for our students.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next that takes us, we are at action item, we are number 6, action item under student affairs. And that is the approval of the YCS senior portfolio. Is there a motion at this time?
Madam President, Vice President Lee, move that the Board of Education approve the YCS senior portfolio.
Thank you. A motion has been made by Vice President Lee. Is there support for this motion?
Trustee Fields, I support.
Thank you. Supported by Trustee Fields. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries. Next, that takes us to our public comment section, the first one for this evening. And I have a few public comment cards that have come in, so I'll go ahead. Thank you, Ms. Haynes. I'll go ahead and read the public comment protocol, which reads as follows. Pursuant to Board of Education Policy 0167.3, the board recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of allowing members of the public to express their views. Please limit statements to 3 minutes in duration. Participants shall direct all comments to the board and not to staff or other participants. No person may address or question board members individually, and all remarks shall be made in a respectful and professional manner. First, we have Jeremy, is it Haley? Can you come up, please?
Thank you all for having me. My name's Jeremy Haley, Ypsi Township. It's great to hear what you're doing with the CTE program and stuff like that, but you also need to think about, amongst all those things, we need people to be able to help flush our toilets, keep our water running, wire our houses, stuff like that as well. And those are your non-traditional college paths because you don't really go to college for those things. And I was wondering if you all could think about how you can incorporate that into the schools, because we still need people who can do those things. We still need people who can drive trucks, bulldozers. Those aren't your normal routes to college. I have personal experience, had a friend early on, went to WCC, hey, I'll go to college right out of high school, it didn't work for him. Got to work for the Ann Arbor Public School bus system. Then he went on to, Washtenaw County Road Commission, the CDL. And now he's actually a supervisory position at Washtenaw County Road Commission with only 2 years to retire. I'm saying, so there are other paths that you all need to look at and not focus on pushing everybody to, hey, go to school, go to college, go to college. Because some kids will buck on that and go, I don't want to do that, so I'm going to do something else. And they might not show up for school because all you're trying to do is push them to go to school, go to college. They don't want to go to college. They might want to do something else. So I want you all to keep that in mind. And what I like to bring up on that is I was at the recent Ypsilanti City Council meeting where they recently gave a gentleman and his wife a $5,000 grant. And in resolution number 2025-021, approving a mini grant to trades program for youth and adults in the amount of $5,000 to support programs assisting community youth through their efforts. And that would be a great man to talk to. He mentioned his story. He worked 35 years for U of M as a carpenter. Amongst that time at U of M, he went and got his human resources degree and say, I could do human resources. And he looked at it and said, I'll be making less money doing that if I was to kept doing what I'm doing. Just an example of, you know, the different path that you all should look at and try to incorporate with your CTE program and stuff like that. And if you want, I gave you the resolution number, I'd contact and just talk to this man, see how he can help you and the community schools, because he has experience and he might be helpful to some of the youth, what he has to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy Haley. Next, we have Veronica O'Derry.
I'm back.
Good evening.
Did you miss me? Just kidding. So I wanted to talk about special ed, of course. I wanted to ask, and actually it's more of a thought for the board to keep in mind. Why should a parent have to go and file a state complaint because of services not being received? As a parent, you feel that you are supposed to be trusting your school district and trusting your school to give you exactly what your child is supposed to have in their IEPs and for their special education. That is not happening. That is not happening here in Ypsilanti. I hate to say it. My son has gone without speech and language pathology services all school year. I'm not okay with that. That means that the district has to pay for compensatory services, whether outside or during summer. But it cannot be done during the school hours. So that is money, possibly extra, coming out of the district's pocket. That would be something that you would have to look at in your finance books. That's for any compensatory service. He's owed 40 hours of compensatory services in, I believe it is social work. He went a year and a half without social work services. We're still working on that compensatory services. He went now this year would make a year and half of a year last year of compensatory services for speech and language. That is a lot of compensatory services. That is 30 hours just for SLP. That's a lot of services. And when they do the compensatory, the kids have to go to them. So if my son, because he does not exactly fit into the Grizzly Learning Camp for the high school, because a lot of that is credit recovery. He doesn't need credit recovery. Where's my son supposed to go? Because he also doesn't qualify for ESY either. He slips through the cracks, unfortunately. So I ask you just to keep it in mind, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Veronica. Next, we have John Wise.
Good evening, everybody. I am a 30-year resident of Ypsilanti. My son Miles, my eldest, is a graduate of Ypsilanti Schools, 2014. I come this evening to offer some remarks that are a little atypical, which is to thank you. I read the recent letter that Dr. Zachary Ross shared about Ypsilanti Community Schools policies and procedures in regards to ICE, and grateful that the district took such a strong position to ensure that students, regardless of national origin or immigration status, are guaranteed access to education. And I was heartened to see that we don't check students' immigration status, nor would we coordinate with ICE unless we're forced to do so by a judicial warrant. And I also appreciated the reminder in the letter about mental health services. I am disgusted and saddened, as I'm sure many of you are, with the federal government's cruelty targeting our most vulnerable students, especially those around immigrant identities and LGBTQ identities. And I just urge YCS to continue to be courageous and to do all we can to protect our young people. And I wanted you to know that people in the community like me stand behind you. Thank you.
Thank you, John Wise. And last, we have Eric Roberts.
Hello, members of the Board of Education. My name is Eric John Roberts. I am a former school board member for Kennewick Hills Public Schools, where I went to high school outside of Grand Rapids. I moved here a few years ago to attend the University of Toledo Law School, and I picked Greater Washtenaw County for a reason. Washtenaw County is putting a lot of money from the ARPA recovery funds into expanding Wi-Fi, and will likely become the first county in the state to connect all residents to internet access. Today, I'm talking with you about my campaign to become a member of the Washtenaw ISD Board of Education. This is something that you'll vote on between May 12th and the end of May. And then at the ISD, a representative from the board will vote on Monday, June 2nd. When I was a Board of Education member, just a month prior to COVID shutdowns, I attended school board training in DC, where we learned about the homework gap. This is a term coined by an FCC commissioner, and it means, or it applies to about 12 million public school students across the country that go home to not having Wi-Fi access. When I learned about this, I went home to my superintendent and I said, Mr. Hopkins, do you know what this is like in our district? He didn't know, but he made a good faith effort to give that a shot the whole month of February. And when school closures shut down all schools in March of 2020, we had the data. It showed about 200 families in our district lacked at-home Wi-Fi access. And so we immediately partnered with Sprint to connect students. All of my students had Wi-Fi access throughout the COVID pandemic. I share that because it's just one of the many great things that local elected officials can do. And I want to thank you for your service to Ypsilanti schools. In this packet of information I provided, I'd invite any members to reach out to me either by email, text, or there's a Calendly link there. I'd love to get to know more of you to talk about more issues that are going on here in Ypsi schools and how the ISD can be a resource and partner more with the schools. Today, this meeting, I'm really grateful for some of the presentations, especially to get a more full understanding of CTE in the county. And I'd love to chat with more of you prior to this May school board election for the ISD to get to know you, to get to know folks that I'd like to partner with, and to walk through what are the needs in Ypsi, what are the needs that we can think strategically for the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric Roberts. Next, that takes us to item 8, which is our consent agenda. Is there a motion at this time?
Madam President, Vice President Lee, move that the Board of Education approve the January 13, 2025 regular board meeting minutes. 2, personnel matters as per the presented list dated 2/4/25, new hires, resignations, and others.
Thank you. A motion has been made by Vice President Lee. Is there support for this motion?
Trustee Fields, I support.
Thank you. Supported by Trustee Fields. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries. Next, that takes us to an action item under Business and Finance, which is the acceptance of the SIS 4 teachers proposal. Is there a motion at this time?
Madam President, this is Trustee Goodrich. I move that the Board of Education accept SIS for Teachers proposal for professional development and coaching for K-5 teachers for $293,800.
Thank you. A motion has been made by Trustee Goodrich. Is there support for this motion?
Trustee Sutton Kennedy, support.
Thank you. Supported by Trustee Sutton Kennedy. Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries. Next, that takes us to the acceptance of the SIS for teachers proposal instructional coaches. Is there a motion at this time?
Trustee Townsend move that the Board of Education accepts the SIS for teacher proposal for professional development and coaching for instructional coaches for $17,000.
Thank you. A motion has been made by Trustee Townsend. Is there support for this motion?
Trustee Sutton Kennedy, support.
Supported by Trustee Sutton Kennedy. Thank you. Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries. Next, that takes us to the acceptance of the first makerspace professional development proposal. Is there a motion at this time?
Trustee Townsend move that the Board of Education accepts the first Makerspace Professional Development Proposal for $323,658.
Thank you. A motion has been made by Trustee Townsend. Is there support for this motion?
Trustee Espy, I support.
Thank you. Supported by Trustee Espy. Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries. Next, that takes us to number 10, which is our action item regarding the MASB Board of Directors Region 7 representative. I will open it up for discussion at this time. We received information about candidates who we, as a board, need to decide, want to put forward, and then Ms. Haynes will submit that vote on our behalf. And there are some papers coming around. If you want to take a look quickly, I know everyone had an opportunity to review it in their email, but if you just want a quick refresher, you can take a look at the candidates and we can have a discussion and then move to a decision. And we are looking at Region 7, 3 candidates, and 1 is an incumbent. Whenever board members are ready, the floor is open for discussion.
You're just looking for who we individually support?
Mhm.
Mr. Lopez, the incumbent for me. Mr. Lopez, the incumbent for me.
Okay. Thank you, Trustee Townsend.
That'll be the same vote for myself.
Okay. Thank you, Trustee Fields.
Yeah, I think we have 3 strong candidates here, but Trustee Lopez is the person we've seen the most from, of course, as the incumbent, but he's also been in communication with us, and I've been I think reasonably pleased with his leadership.
Thank you, trustee Goodrich.
Trustee
I-
Sutton,
Oh, go ahead, trustee Sutton Kennedy.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same for me, trustee Lopez.
Perfect. And I was just going to add that I also support Mr. Lopez, and I believe of the candidates, at least for me, and I don't know about the rest of the board, he was the only one who did reach out by email to the board members talking about why he wanted to continue to remain in this seat. And I know that part of his work in all the years he has served, he's had a focus on equity.
Yeah. Mr. Lopez, for me too.
Yeah.
Thank you, Vice President Lee.
I would also offer my support to Mr. Lopez. I appreciate the highlights in the other two candidates, particularly in Corey McLaughlin around the CTE. However, I do think Mr. Lopez has been invested in building relationships, and I think that I would like to support him.
Any other comments, board? Okay. I think we have a consensus. Is there a motion at this time?
Trustee Townsend moved that the Board of Education chooses Guillermo, thank you, Lopez for the MASB Board of Director, Region 7 Representative.
Thank you. A motion has been made by trustee Townsend. Is there support for this motion?
Trustee Fields, I support.
Who wants it?
Who said?
Both of you were speaking at the same time.
Oh, okay.
So a motion was made by trustee Townsend, supported by Vice President Lee. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries. Thank you, board. You have what you need, Ms. Haynes, from us? Perfect. Next, that takes us to our second public comment portion for this evening. Have any cards come in that the board? Okay. Okay, thank you. Now we are at our item number 12, which is under discussions. Are there any subcommittee reports at this time?
Trustee Townsend, have Operations and Finance Subcommittee report. We met last week and we discussed a number of things, tax rate for millages, moving student services, bids on furniture, and then the Tyler Drive passenger, is that the Apple program, I believe? It's a lot to that one. But everything looks like it's pretty much moving fast. The presentation was submitted to the board, I believe, information in regards to that. Also, I'm trying to think with the WASB, I'm sure trustee Sutton Kennedy will report more out on that. We did have our legislative breakfast on January 27th, where we're having direct conversations with legislators, and pretty much the majority of them were there that represented the county and had specific conversations on the CTE, special education, and a number of other things. Just to highlight a couple of dates that should be communicated to you, we will be having our annual meeting on March 13th. And that's where we will be voting for the new WASB leaders, board member, executive committee. We will also have our next legislative breakfast on May 19th, and that's 7:30 in the morning at the ISD. And then the ISD budget meeting will be April 17th at 6 p.m. via Zoom. So please make sure that you all tune into that, because of course that's the time when we review the budget, see how much projected funds we're supposed to get and all of those other things. Also, during the annual meeting in March, we typically have some type of professional development training or educational training. So that information will be discussed, and I believe one of the other things we talked about with operations and finance was the financial training that board members are required to take. So additional information will be out about that, but just making sure board members are trained. They have to take so many credits
Yep.
a year, so you know what to do. All right, and we also talked about the debt relief funds that we will be getting in, but they're outlining the plan for that, making it formally written what we want to do with those funds. And that will be presented to the state, correct? Yep, okay.
The spend plan.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, trustee Townsend.
Trustee
Yes,
Field-
trustee Fields.
Yeah, Trustee Fields, we met with the Communications Subcommittee on February 3rd. We talked about the Together Tuesday videos that are still going on. There's still a couple of them that need to come, mine's included. I'm still working on that. So we talked about that. We also talked about they've added the athletic spotlights, which I'm excited about that. I'm glad we're recognizing some of our student athletes as they're, as they are doing their thing. And I think that's important. I think parents like that too, to be able to, your students being recognized. So we talked about that. We also talked about the media regarding the book vending machines, which was a great thing added, thing for our schools. And I love that idea, but we talked about how they were instrumental in getting, the media out for that. There was interviews with Concentrate as well regarding the vending machine books. So they highlighted that. We have some upcoming things we are talking about Mr. Kim with the NC3. We're talking about, that and the list of the different certifications which we talked about a lot today. So, with their part. We did have the NAPIT, so I'm going to be looking to see what we have after that because that was today. So we don't know, what that looked like yet because today was NAPIT. So we'll just be looking for some other feedback and what kind of information is going to come back from media relations as far as Concentrate. And then all schools were that. We talk about the teacher action research team and professional development opportunities that are upcoming. And then we had some information regarding signing day, which was last week as well, which was awesome. I heard it's a nice turnout. I missed it. I was at work, but that was a nice thing. So, in all these things that we're talking about, I'm interested. I'm excited about looking for the media. What kind of feedback we're going to get from those activities that took place last week. What else we have? We talked about the U of M Roadmap project. So we're going to be looking for information regarding that. The strategic plan, which we talked about earlier, but they were talking about our feedback on that. And I think that was it. We had a nice meeting, nice turnout, and looking forward to our next one next month.
All right. Thank you so much, trustee Fields. Other subcommittee reports? Yes, trustee Sutton Kennedy.
So for the Legislative Relations Network, as trustee Townsend just mentioned, we had the legislative breakfast at the end of January where local school district representatives met with our state representatives and legislators to discuss education at both the state and federal levels. So many legislators expressed their concerns about the future of public education and emphasized their commitment to protect it. A key issue that was discussed in that meeting was the proposed road improvements plan, which proposes diverting funds from the state tax to support road work. So this poses a significant challenge as Michigan's K-12 education budget is largely funded by the school aid fund, which relies heavily on sales tax revenue. Some estimates suggest that this road plan could result in a loss of $700 million to $1 billion in school funding for Michigan schools. So school leaders and education professionals, and I would also include our community as well, are strongly encouraged to engage with legislators to advocate for preserving our school funding across the state. And then also at that meeting, the WISD shared an informative presentation on mental health wraparound services in the district, illustrating how state funding was being used and to support our students across the district. And that presentation is really helpful to allow our legislators to know when they're looking at budget lines and they're looking at funding, how we're using it, and they have that information to be able to advocate to keep those funds for our students. Additionally, a brief presentation was given highlighting the Talent Together program, which is our Grow Your Own program. And I believe that even here in this district in IPSI, that we are part of the pilot programs that were highlighted there, especially with growing your own educators for our ELP programs as well. And so they highlighted the work that we're doing here at that meeting as well for our legislators to have that information as well.
Thank you, Trustee Sutton Kennedy, for that update on all things legislative. Any other subcommittee report?
Yeah, I left my notes at home, so I'm gonna try to remember.
All right.
Preschool,
Mm-hmm.
we had a meeting.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a quorum. They're still in the process of finding a secretary.
Okay.
So we wasn't able to vote on anything. They did open up a new classroom.
Mhm.
I believe that was at,
The early head start at Beatty.
yes,
Okay.
it was, but he did not give us any information on it because he wanted to be a surprise. So we have to wait until
Okay.
this meeting this month,
Okay.
and we will find out everything about it. And I can't wait. So
Great.
we're I'm waiting on that.
Mm-hmm.
And also they gave us information from December information.
Okay.
This meeting for January was on December. So everything was the same. All the numbers was the same and everything. So
Mm-hmm.
and then I think that was about it. Because nothing really changed because it was a short month and
Mhm.
everything. So yeah. So we'll find out January's data this month.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you, Vice President Lee.
Nope.
Any other subcommittee report? All right, we will move on to board superintendent comments. Comments from the board?
Madam President?
Yes, Trustee Goodrich.
I just have a couple quick things. I wanted to express my appreciation for the webinar that was hosted by MESA and MASB on the executive orders, and thank Dr. Zachary Ross for sharing out the resources from that. That was useful and yeah, well-grounded advice as we move into this next chapter. I also really appreciated the Open Meetings Act workshop that the MHAC hosted and that Mr. Roberts presented. It was a really useful, I found it a useful review, just helping to make sure that we stay carefully Open Meetings Act compliant here in our work here. And then I just want to apologize in advance that I'll be missing our next meeting this month, and it sounds like I'll have some catching up to do on financial training. So I'll have to get with Ms. Haynes to make sure I'm on top of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Goodrich. As Trustee Townsend.
It's been a busy month. I want to congratulate all of our athletes that did the signing day last week. It was a great event. Very super proud of our athletes, as well as I'm trying to think what else. I attended NAPA today with the coffee and conversation with Dr. Hugan. That went very well, and learned a lot about what was presented here tonight and some other great things that they're doing. I also want to give kudos to our two new board members, Trustee am I saying SB? Okay. She is now on our board of directors for the WASB. And she represented Trustee SB represented the district very well. And then Trustee Sutton Kennedy. Her notes, she made you proud, Trustee Goodrich. They were very thorough, but she came right on in at the legislative breakfast and did her thing. So I just wanted to acknowledge both of them because they did, they're doing an excellent job and they're a great addition to the team. And there was something else I wanted to say, but lost it, so it's gone. But
It might come back to
thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Trustee Townsend, other board comments?
Trustee Sutton Kennedy.
Yes.
So I wanted to thank the district cabinet and administrators and everyone who has taken their time to onboard myself and Trustee Espy and all of the meetings that we've had and just sharing so much information about the district and how the district is supporting our students. And I really appreciate everyone taking that time out. And especially John and I think it was Randy who gave us the district tour and took us around to all the buildings so that we can see all of the facilities that are supporting our scholars. And it was just an amazing experience to walk around, seeing the students in the building and seeing everything that was going on. And so first and foremost, I wanted to thank everyone for who was a part of that, for taking the time out, because I know you all are busy. And so I appreciate that. And then second, today, I attended the NAPID events at Ford as a parent for my student. And so I just wanted to just highlight how amazing that event was in attending it, and all of the wonderful information that Principal Young shared with the parents that did show up there. I thought it was a pretty nice turnout. The cafeteria there was pretty full of parents who showed up for that event today. And Principal Young shared information about how the parents can be involved, about the upcoming enrollment for the next school year. So parents have that information and they're able to get on that, as soon as applications and things open up. And then also had the opportunity to attend the coffee with Principal Harris Hugan at the high school earlier this afternoon, along with Trustee Townsend and Trustee Fields, and was able to see once again the amazing podcast studio, and talk a little bit with the new instructors and the recent instructors for those programs and learn about the credentialing that affords our students, and to see that great facility. So I just wanted to highlight some of that work today.
Thank you. Trustee Fields?
Yes. I wanted to also note that I attended the coffee and conversation today, which was nice. I think that's a nice forum. Like Trustee Townsend said, maybe we can do that like once a month or something like that, just to get the parents involved, just to get that knowledge and really get out there. I'm hoping that we're going to see more parents. That's the idea. But it was really nice to come to and hearing the information from Dr. Hugan about what's going on and about the FAFSA and just different opportunities that they're trying to put in place for the students. Second, I wanted to also say to the administration and board, I so appreciate the new process for onboarding the new members. So how I wish I had that in place when I came. It's not bad, but I'm just saying, I like it. I like to be able to get those videos of this just coming back and that information. I really, really, truly appreciate that and getting that knowledge. Feel like I was there because they gave me stuff and I'm like, oh my God, this is right. I really like this, So I am so really honestly appreciative of that new process. I think that'll be really instrumental down the road for everybody coming in new and just save that in that presence of what it looks like. So, so thank you, administration, whoever, all the people that put that together. I'm like, oh, that looks like they had a long week. Every time I look up, I was getting one. I'm like, oh my God, they over there jamming. I'm like, what's up? But it was nice. I'm just saying though, I really do like it. I appreciate it. And I really do wish I had that, to be honest. I felt like I missed something. I'm here now because I've been here for a while, but I really do feel like I missed something when I first came on board because we didn't really have all of that knowledge. We went on tours, but just seeing everything how it is now, I like that and keep that in place. Keep doing that. I guess the only thing you can do is just keep adding to it to make it better, but keep kudos to that process. And that's what I have.
I didn't have it.
Neither did I. So
Uh,
you in good company.
Yes,
But we realized how important it was. And so I'm glad that this board, being part of this board, that we collectively came together and decided that this was something that we needed for new members that would help them to get acclimated to board service. So it is a welcome addition and it is there always and anybody can pick it up and we can just add to it and update it. So I agree. It is a wonderful tool and I know it's a lot of work for our administrators to take the time to onboard our new trustees, but it's well worth it. So certainly I have deep appreciation for, I was just looking at all the emails and I was just like, perhaps I should jump on one of these Zooms, but but it was a very robust and it sounds like when I checked in with both trustee Sutton Kennedy and trustee Espy, that they both affirmed that this was an absolutely phenomenal way to get acclimated to board service and they're very appreciative. So
yeah, I just wanted to echo that appreciation as well. Truly, it was a feat, I feel like, by Dr. Elena Zachary Ross and Ms. Haynes over there coordinating everyone every evening and all the late nights that all the cabinet members devoted to onboarding us. We greatly appreciate, particularly, I think, yes, those facility folks who took us around for hours. And during that visit, not only were we able to learn about the facilities, but we also had the opportunity to see how our educators, our principals, each one of them took the time to show us around their buildings, celebrate their schools, and it was wonderful to see the joy and passion that each of them had in their buildings. We were oftentimes trying to get more time in the building than we even had at the time because there were so many exciting things to look at and to learn about. So again, thank you so much, both to the facilities folks and principals who were willing to take that time with us. And yes, through those onboarding conversations, it was really amazing to not only hear about the things that we oftentimes think of as part of the education experience, but also the things that maybe we don't always think about. And I saw beautiful innovation coming from folks in transportation, HR, facilities. And so it's beautiful to see that it goes beyond what's happening in the classroom, that the community is all connected and all holding that same mission in line. So thank you again for that opportunity. And thank you to the administrators and cabinet who were willing to display that joy with us. So thank you.
Can I ask a question? I looked on the calendar and I've noticed that we don't have school on Friday. Why?
The calendar is negotiated.
that would be why.
The day we are able to choose the start day. And from there, we have teams that represent the staff at all levels. And the calendar is then for the length of the collective bargaining agreements is decided upon between our EAs and administration. So they look at the days, they look at what teachers and staff members say what works for best in terms of how many professional development days we are able to have by the state. So we have our state person look at it through the WISD and Michigan Department of Ed. And then we really get input from that committee and they bring it back to leadership and then the unions vote on the calendar for the 2 years. And then that's voted on along with the collective bargaining agreement.
Don't y'all realize that's Valentine's Day? And you taking away kids' pleasure for candy and cupcakes and cookies. They don't need no and to be my Valentine.
Yeah.
Now I can't even do the cookies with my grandbaby.
Oh,
Well, you can celebrate. I know a lot of the buildings are celebrating the day before on the Thursday or Wednesday. So
Were they talking about?
there's still time for celebration.
a snowstorm
And
is
I-
coming. We'll see.
I know.
We cannot,
I'm
as much as
so
we'd like to. Any other board comments? I just have one I'll try to be as brief as possible, and just wanted to, and I have, just to make sure I stay on task with the things that I want to say. I just want to say thank you to this board for their engagement, and always advocating and keeping at the front of their mind the needs of our students and this district. We know that as a board that we are in some really uncertain times, and we know that we will be probably inundated in the days to come with information coming to us about a variety of different things. So I just wanted to say a few things about what I feel like affirms or reiterates our commitment to not only this district and this community, but really just having a pulse on what's happening around us and wanting to express some compassion for that. So I'll just go ahead and read what I have prepared, and then after I read it, I'll just open it up for any other comments from the board. In YCS, we know that we are not moved by what we see, we are moved by what we know. We know that we can often be viewed by our community as anchors during times of chaos, confusion, and crisis. We know that it has not been an easy few weeks, and with all of the proposed changes, members of our school community are likely feeling uncertain or anxious. Yet, we will continue to take good care of ourselves, each other, embrace joy, hope, and make space for grace, flexibility, patience, and show up every day with an unapologetic commitment to our scholars and caregivers. We know that no matter what is going on around us, we have a responsibility to cultivate, develop, and nurture the genius, brilliance, talent, creativity, compassion that lies in each one of our scholars. We know we are grateful for our educational leaders, our entire educational and student support services team of educators, staff, counselors, social workers, custodians, food service employees, bus drivers, coaches, and volunteers who stand in the gap. We thank you because you already know. We know our community partners help us advance the educational goals of YCS, and we say thank you. We know as a district, we will continue to center students in every decision we make. We know distractions are detours, so we will stay focused because we have work to do. We know that a house divided against itself cannot stand. We know that Dr. Elena Zachary Ross, her sentiments that we are stronger together, and Dr. Lopez's powerful words, which are our scholars need to be heard, valued, seen, respected, are more than just words. It is who we are at YCS at our core. We know that when we lift each other, we all rise. We know as an 8-member team, our Board of Education and Superintendent, we are sagacious leaders who are committed to serving assiduously, advocating, and activating to support the needs of our scholars and everyone who is part of our educational learning community. We know that advocacy matters for our scholars, our staff, our educators, our caregivers, and our community. We know that what we do every day and what we say matters. We know that we occupy these seats because of the trust this community has in us. We know that we have weathered many storms together and will continue to stay the course and will always center students and commend and appreciate everyone for their engagement and actions in the months ahead. The floor is open. I just needed to say that because I know we're in such tumultuous times. And as a board, it has been my honor to serve and to be on a team where we are laser sharp focused on doing what's right for students. So no matter what is happening and swirling around us, we will stay the course. We will stand firm, and we will make sure our scholars have everything that they need to be successful. You look like you're ready. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm ready. Thank you, Dr. Hawkins, for your words. of encouragement. I think the key thing in there is we know. We have a very high functioning board. The past board was a very high functioning board. We're very intentional. How we fight may not necessarily be accustomed to what people are used to, but trust and understand we fight. There are several conversations we have with our leaders directly. We sit at various tables. Every person on this board is works in education, social work, housing, medicine, whatever it is. We got jobs, and we deal with the things in this community that we know are major barriers. We have several conversations and action that we do before we even come to the table. We have a very active superintendent. We have been very diligent and strategic. And, you know, you don't get $25 million erased overnight. You have to then, once you do that, you have to negotiate to sell buildings because the community wanted a community center. You have to negotiate contracts to make sure that all of your employees are taken care of. And so we're listening, we watch, we do what we need to do. So again, the key word for me is we know. And we're listening. So we don't take what's going on in this community lightly. And that just needs to be understood. And like we said, we know what's going on a federal, state, and local level. And we are doing the work that's necessary. And sometimes when you work in silence, people don't understand that, but you can get misquoted when you work in silence as well. So I think just people need to provide grace and support and just help us fight and be the voice that we need you to be to advocate for our babies. That's all I have. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Trustee Townsend. Other board comments?
No.
Trustee
Com-
Fields and then Trustee Goodrich.
So I didn't see her over here.
And then Trustee Sutton Kennedy, did you have something? Or no? Okay.
Just want to say thank you for those encouraging words. That's what I'm saying. We couldn't have said it better. I just truly appreciate that we have a president who can voice for us and say it in the words that we need to say it in, you know, because sometimes we can think a lot of things, but sometimes you can't put it in words. So thank you again for putting that out there, and that represents us, you know, as a board, and you always have been able to come up with the right thing to say, you know, and supporting us without us having to say anything. So again, thank you for that, those encouraging words.
Thank you. It's us.
I'll also express my gratitude for everything you articulated. And I just acknowledge that we're in challenging times. Many of us came to our positions here because we care so deeply about being able to advocate for the scholars who we serve. And that is a really important part of our role. And every time that we go to meetings with legislators, to meetings with other members of the community, like we're standing up. We're standing up for each of our scholars, and especially for our most vulnerable scholars. I know that we're a well-trained board, and we're also really cognizant of the line between where we stand and what we do as individuals, and who can speak and how we speak as a board. So I know that many of us have a lot of work to do and wear a lot of different hats, and that we're going to be really thoughtful about how we navigate the work we need to do in the coming months and years. And of course, at this table and in so many corners of our lives, always advocating for the scholars we serve here.
That's right. Thank you, Trustee Goodrich. Trustee Sutton Kennedy.
First, thank you, President Hawkins, for your amazing words, and Trustee Townsend for highlighting some of the many ways that we are, as a board, have been in the past, currently are, and will continue to advocate on behalf of our students and scholars in our district. And I just wanted to also thank our other partners as well. You know, we are advocating for what we need here locally in our district, and our other partners like MEJC, Student Advocacy Center, are advocating as well. So for example, MEJC has a letter that they're drafting and are requesting support to legislators, urging them to protect funds for our schools and for our districts. And so I just wanted to highlight that, you know, we're all working together to ensure that all of our students have access to high quality education. And so I just wanted to say that, and just to say thank you, everyone, for all the work that they're doing here and across all the other organizations as well.
Other board comment?
Yes.
Okay. Vice President Lee?
Just want to say thank you, President Hawkins, for your words. Thank you, board. Thank you, Ypsilanti Community Schools. Thank you, Ypsilanti community. We're gonna be all right.
Yes, we will.
I just also want to thank you, say thank you, and say I am feeling connection and resonance with many of the comments shared today, and what you've shared, Dr. Hawkins. I deeply appreciate that, and knowing that as a district, we continue to show up for our students and do what we've done every day. So thank you.
And the last thing that I'll just say, and then I'll pass it to Dr. Zachary Ross, is that, and this kind of just piggybacks on what Trustee Townsend said, is that we, as a community, probably often don't know that the 7 board members who are seated here, we don't necessarily know the connections or conversations that are happening, right? And the ways in which we advocate for this district every single day. And so I think it's important to not only do the work, but it's important to just pause for a moment to say that I'm proud to serve with all of you. And I'm proud of what we accomplish individually, and I'm even prouder of what we accomplished together. So I'm just thankful that I'm part of this district, that I live in this community, I get to serve in this community, and that we all get to advocate in a myriad of ways, seen and unseen. Dr. Zachary Ross.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to again say thank you for that statement. I think it's just an indication of how all of us partner together. We've seen letters come out by the school district, from administration, about what our statement is and what staff is to do, and to see this collaboration at the board table is another example of what we know. We know that we are stronger together. We've seen this during unprecedented times before, during COVID, when we came together. And although we are appreciative of other organizations, we had to lead the way.
That's right.
And we will continue to lead the way because our students are here with us every day.
That's right.
We've seen last week, unfortunately, where they've taken away funding and other places, lost staff members, and we still had to stay steady. And it's important for us, and I appreciate again Charlotte always being here, Mr. President Tillerson always being here, because it's our students and our families that need to see us unified with the collective message, because there's going to be things going back and forth and policies. If you can recall that time during COVID when things were changing every single day, and we had to sometimes be the ones to decipher what the health department meant on a day-to-day basis and what was coming down. And so during those times, we provided that stability. And I'm saying the big we, the partnerships from, as they talked about collectively, from those who are serving food to those who are custodial staff that were cleaning, those who are technology staff, the teachers, the teacher assistants, the psychologists, the parents, everyone who wrapped around. And it's going to take that same collective effort that we remain on point, we have to double down and stay focused. And so I appreciate today just that support, because I know that our staff, our folks who do just really look to the board for direction, appreciate it and need it during these times. So I just want to say thank you for your resolve and fortitude to continue to move forward. And for us to continue to, and I heard in your statement about the joy, because we talk about Goldie Muhammad's 5 Pursuit in the work that we do. And I appreciate you, Trustee SB, reminding us that there's all those things and we still go back to instruction. And in that 5 pursuit, that 5th pursuit is joy. And so our students, as much as we can continue to keep the most of this away from them, and that as we're cultivating the genius, that we remember the joy and continue to lift up those joyful things. So I'm appreciative of the fact that you're supporting through attending NAPIT Day and all the families that came out, because we've got to continue to look forward and to think about those the pieces of joy. And the fact that you supported the portfolio, because we have the student scholarship platform coming up. I appreciate even the comment about the applied and experiential learning. Man, you know, people see it as just that whole, yes, we're going AI, but that's part of experiential learning, that yes, our students are learning about welding and all those things at WCC, because we're going to need CDL folks. That's why we support the driving school right next door. Those are parts of what this applied and experiential learning is all about. And that we're going to see the vodcast, that we had the vodcast about, so it's coming out the end of the month. We recorded the early head start, because we've got to start even younger, because it's important that we really start with the youngest of the young and continue on to, like you asked the question of what happens if they're 26, where do they go, right? So we have to be thinking about all of them. And we do know that we have gaps in transition of services. We've been talking about special education services all this time. I know that, talk about Matilda as a TC, she's been going and doing extra work everywhere, because we're still filling in spaces. And so we just got to continue working with those people and caregivers in our classrooms. And so just again, thank you to our new board members who have gone through all those hours, because it was definitely, it was like going through sorority things, all the nights and evenings of working and listening to all the directors and hearing from everyone. And again, thank you. Even our MEA folks came and met for one of the evenings. And so that sacrifice of time is going to take that. So, and even going and giving your input to the strategic plan. So board members know that they had an opportunity last week. So that work is finalizing. It's not just sitting there. We want to make sure that those voices were heard. So we know that if we continue to work together, that our students, that's where you talked about remaining focused on the students. Our students, our scholars are the ones that's going to benefit. We've had our opportunity to go through school. They've got to maintain, and we've got to stay focused on them. So thank you for that. And yes, Vice President Lee, there's PD Day this week, Professional Development Day, which there's some wonderful professional development that not only we have outside folks, but inside people who are well-trained that's going to work with our staff members. And then no school on Friday and Monday. That staff, they need that. They talked about they're gonna need that break. They're looking forward to it. So thank you. There used to be a countywide break right there around that time. So they talked about I'm sure they would love to share why. But we want to make sure that our staff really do take that time to take care of themselves on those days, because you certainly do deserve it. There's so much that you pour into our staff members. And again, board, I cannot thank you enough. I think about the extra time that many of you just talked about with FAFSA and just all the other things that you add, the extra pictures and support that you give to the scholar without being asked. You just offer it. So thank you for all the contributions that go beyond this table.
Thank you, Dr. Zachary Ross. We're at the end here. Anything else that anyone needs to say before we adjourn? All right, the time is 9:02. This regular Board of